Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Concerning Gaming. I'm Cade.
I'm Dan.
And today we're going to be talking about a competitive tableau builder, Through the Ages.
We're going to talk about Through the Ages today, and I'm going to tell you why I'm selling this board game, all right?
And I'm buying it! Here's how to play.
Alright, so here I have the game set up in Tabletop Simulator. I have it set up for a 2-player game. If we take a look at our player boards, this is how the game is going to be set up at the very beginning. So over at the top are all of our technologies or advancements that we have to our civilization. We can skip over the warriors right now, but this is essentially going to be our military strength of the game. The first two ones that we have, which are our brown-backed cards, is agriculture and bronze. So at the beginning of the game, we know agriculture and we know bronze working. However, just because we have these here does not mean that we are actually producing anything from them. In order to produce, we actually need to build farms, which are represented by these yellow cubes, or we need to build mines, which are also represented by these yellow cubes. So at the beginning of the game, we have 2 farms, we have 2 mines, and at the end of every turn, if we look at our production phase, these are going to produce food and resources. Whenever they produce food and resources, you will take the same amount of blue cubes that you have as yellow cubes and store them on these cards. So at the end of the turn, for example, I will get 2 resources and 2 food that I could then use in a future turn. These are the only ones that actually have any blue cubes associated with it. Everything else is going to be permanent bonuses. So if we take a look over here at these gray ones, these are called civil buildings. So we have a philosophy building, and by having a yellow cube on it, that means that we have a scientist. So if we look at the bottom of all of these cards, it tells us what we get by having yellow buildings on there. The yellow warrior cube has 1 strength. The yellow that we have in agriculture produces 2 food because there's 2 of them on there. These 2 produce 2 resources. This one produces a technology, and so if we scroll up here and take a look at our technology track, you will see that we're getting 1 technology per round. So down here is how much you produce per round, and up top is keeping track of the total amount of technology that you have at the moment. So we're producing 1 per round, but we still have 0. At the end of the round, if we still were right here, we would gain 1 technology like so. The other building that we start off with is religion. We'll talk about happiness in just a second, but the other thing that we also get if we have a building here is culture. So if we were to build a building on here, we would increase our culture production by 1. So we'd go back up here and we would move this to the 1 spot, signifying that every round we're going to get +1 culture, which is how we win the game, by having the most culture. Then if we also look down here at what we get happiness. So if we take a look at our happiness track down at the bottom, we're currently on 0. By increasing the happiness by 1, you get to move this happiness marker over here to the 1 spot. The other thing that you can see on your board is your government over here on the right-hand side. In the very first round of the game, you only get 1 or 2 actions, or 3 or 4, depending on the amount of players in there. But typically, every turn after that, you will get all of your actions. So by taking a look at the government that you have, it's going to tell you a few things. It's going to tell you how many actions you get per turn for your civil actions, which are these white cubes, and it's going to tell you how many military actions you get per turn. So in total, you could have a total of 6 actions between your white and your red cubes. Down here at the bottom right, it's also going to tell you how many buildings of your civil buildings you can have. So you can have 2 of any type of civil building, and the type of civil building is located up here at the top right. So this is a science building, this is a religion building. And so, right now we only have 1, but let's just say we were to build another one, we would have 2 philosophers here. We would only be able to have a maximum of 2 in our science buildings unless we changed our government to allow us to get more in the future. The other thing that our board tells us is the end of turn sequence. But if you were to do the app, or if you were to play on Board Game Arena, it would simulate all of this for you. So you would discard your excess military cards, then you would score your production for your science and culture. Then you would look at corruption, which we're not going to go into too much depth about, but you need to make sure that you're always filling up the spaces on this. Otherwise, you're going to start losing production because you have too many resources in your civilization. Then you're going to produce your food. As you can see, we have 2 cubes. So if we have 2 cubes, we would produce 2 blue ones. We would consume food, and if you had more workers out on the board, it will show you how much food you actually lose per round because you have to feed your civilization. And then after that, we would do resource production. So if we had 2 yellow cubes here, we would produce 2 blue cubes. In the future, if we ever want to upgrade any of these and we want to put more blue cubes out on the board and increase the production that we have in any of these buildings, the cost to do so is listed right here on the left. So for example, to build one of these cost 3 resources, and that would come from this pool right here. And it also has this kind of lighter background, which means to do that you would spend 1 civil action. However, if you notice all the way on the left-hand side, in order to build this warrior, it would cost 2 resources, but it would cost a red action to build that warrior. Then down here at the bottom, we have our happiness track. As we start bringing more workers into our civilization and putting them out onto buildings, we are going to uncover the amount of workers that we've spent, which means that we have to feed them every round. But then we're also going to have unhappy citizens. And so if we have both of these open and you see the farthest left spot, you need to have your happiness at this one spot, or you need to have a worker available to be a discontent worker, which means that he's not going to work until the happiness gets over to this area. Then he would be free for working again. This one's a little bit more difficult to understand, but once you get this going, it's pretty smooth sailing after that. All right, so in Civilization, you are trying to go through 4 different ages. Now, what's going to happen is every time it's your turn, you're going to do a variety of things in order to increase the production of your civilization and try and gain more technology, more cultural points, and also more military so that you can be stronger than your opponents. By doing that, most of the time, you're going to be focusing on this marketplace right here. And what you're going to be doing on your turn is drafting some of these cards from this marketplace. If we wanted to buy any cards from this marketplace, we would have to look at the bottom. The bottom circle determines how many action points it costs to buy these cards. So on my turn, for example, if I had 4 actions, and let's just say I wanted to buy a leader, and I wanted to buy this, and then maybe I wanted to do some other actions down here, I would be spending 1 action there, and 1 action there to draft from the marketplace. These would then immediately go into my hand. The leader would go into my hand, and I can't play him until I spend another action to do so. So for example, I could do this, but whenever I buy this wonder card, it immediately goes into construction. There's a variety of different types of cards that you'll be able to see up here on the marketplace. The ones with the yellow backs are action cards. Whenever you purchase them on a future turn, you can use any of their special powers that they have to get you some bonuses. The green backed ones are all going to be leaders. You can have 1 leader at most in your civilization at a time, and they all give you a specific strategy that you might want to go after. And then these purple backed ones are going to be wonders. Wonders can be constructed in front of your civilization. For example, I have the Hanging Gardens here. And if we take a look at both of these, we can see what they do. So for example, the Hanging Gardens costs a total of 6 resources. However, I have to spend 3 separate actions of 2 resources each before I can build this. So if we take a look at this example here, we've got 4 to use, and let's just say I still have 2 white actions left. I would spend a white action and spend 2 resources to put it on this 2 to signify that I am 1/3 of the way done completing this wonder. I could then spend another action to spend 2 more resources, and one of them would go on top of it to signify the construction. So now I only have 1 more action of 2 resources until this is complete. Then if we take a look at it when it's completed, you get a bonus. This one would be gaining 2 food right away, which means that I would put 2 blue cubes on my food track right here. Then I would also gain 2 happiness and 1 culture point. So for example, that means that I would move this happiness token to 2, and the culture production would go up by 1, as seen here. So that means that I would go up here to the culture production and move that up 1. In the future, once I've completed a wonder, all wonders will cost an additional action to buy from the marketplace. So for example, this Colossus right here costs 3 white actions. This would actually cost me 4 because I already have one in play. So there's a variety of different things that you're going to be doing on this game. You are going to be drafting these cards, building up buildings so that you can get more resources, which will allow you to play more cards in the future. After turn 1, you're also going to be drawing some military cards as well. So if you ended your turn and you had any of these red actions left, that's how many cards you would draw. As you can see on the end of turn sequence, we draw military cards up to a maximum of 3, then we reset everything. So for example, we could draw a couple of military actions, and in the beginning, these are going to be used during the politics phase, which is the very beginning of your action. You can choose to play these out in front of you. If you decided to play any of these cards, they would be played face down into this future deck, and then you would flip over one from here. This signifies that whenever you put one into this deck right here, you know what's going to be coming in the future so that you can plan for it, and then you would resolve something that's currently happening right now. So for example, if I played this card to prepare for the future and I flipped one over, this one says that each civilization scores 2 science. So these science tracks would go up by 2 for each of us. At the beginning of the game, it's more friendly, but as you get farther and farther into the game and more military actions come up, they could be directly affecting your opponents, or they will give bonuses to whoever has the strongest military. In order to increase that military strength, you will need to be buying more warriors by paying the cost here in resources to put more yellow cubes out on there in the future. Other things that you could do is buy different types of cards which actually strengthen the amount of warriors that you get. So at the end of a turn, you are going to, in a 2-player game like we have set up now, you're going to discard these 3 cards. So this one, for example, would be discarded, and then everything else would move down, and then you'd start revealing more cards. You are going to do this until you go through all of your Age A decks. Then you're going to bring out the Age 1 and the Age 1 military decks, and then get rid of these. Alright, so let's say a couple of turns have passed, and now we're getting into the Age 1 deck. Now we have to refill these, so as we start flipping over these Age 1 decks, we are going to start to see some different types of cards come out. These first ones are going to be blue-backed cards, and these are going to be technology cards. As you can see at the top left, they now have a new requirement to play them from your hand in front of you. You have to actually spend the science that it costs at the top left to play them in front of you. So for example, I could buy this one for 3 actions. I could put it in front of me in my hand. And then if I wanted to pay it in front of me here, I would have to spend the 3 science that it costs at the top left. Then I get some sort of immediate or passive bonus. Alright, so I've pulled out a couple of Age 1 cards here just to show you a variety of different types of cards that will be coming up in future ages. So for example, over here on the left we have Knights and we have Swordsmen. As you can see, because their symbol is different at the top right, if you were to purchase these cards and play them into your area, for example, the upgraded version would go right here on top. And that signifies that this is a stronger version of what you had previously. So this one is an Age A, or an Ancient Age card, and this one is an Age 1 card. So this one is a stronger version of it. So now if you ever wanted to upgrade, and you wanted to put a yellow cube here, which would increase your strength by 2 instead of 1, playing a new cube from your worker pool would now cost 3 resources. So as you can see, you would have to spend these 3 resources and the military action to now put something here. When you put it there, it'll increase your strength by 2. Now what you also could do is upgrade one of these warriors into a swordsman. So you still have 1 warrior that's left here. If you wanted to, you could spend an action. So for example, I can grab this red cube to increase him, and I would just have to pay the difference in resources to increase him. So that would be 1 red action, and it would be 1 instead of 3 resources. Now, for example, if I had 2 cubes on this one, that would be worth 4 because each of these cubes is worth 2. So I would go up here to my strength track and I would move that up to 4. You can do that same type of upgrading, but with your brown buildings, which will produce you resources. It works the same way. There's different types of technologies that you could play in front of you. And when you play these give you immediate bonuses. So for example, you can get 1 additional cube, which means you get an additional action. You can get 1 red cube, which gets you an additional military action. And this one also gives you a permanent passive military strength as well. There's going to be stronger types of action cards. There's going to be stronger leaders. There's going to be more expensive and more often than not stronger wonders. And then there's also going to be government cards. So let's just say you were to take this government card and you wanted to increase your government. So as you can see, the government that we start off with is despotism. So that would be 4 white actions, 2 red actions. You could increase it to theocracy. In order to increase it to theocracy, you look at the top left. If you wanted to play this as an action to put a new government in play, it would require 6 technology or 6 science. However, if you did not want to spend an action to do that, maybe because you don't have as much science, then at the very beginning of your turn, you can spend this 1 value science in order to have an overthrow of your government. That would mean that you get rid of all of your actions, and the only thing you do on your turn is increase the government to the new style. Then you would pass, and then you would get all of the benefits from this on the future turn. So for example, now you have 4 white cubes, and then you would have 3 red cubes as well. In addition to upgrading this, you also get a few things that's listed down here at the bottom. So for example, you get 1 culture production, 1 permanent military strength, 1 happiness, and now you can put 3 buildings on your civil cards here. So as an example, you could now have 3 yellow cubes here, which would be able to give you 3 science. So you're going to be going back and forth with turns, buying cards from the marketplace, increasing your buildings, and trying to manage all of the different resources that you have on your player board, while also taking a look at your opponent to see what types of military he's building up, just to be sure that he doesn't get too far ahead of you on the military track. But there's a variety of different cards that you'll be playing on your turn, a variety of different territories that you're going to be fighting over so that you can get more benefits as well. And really what you're going to be doing on this game is ramping up and trying to keep organized while you're playing this game. So you're going to eventually have many, many cards in front of you. You're going to have many different people out on the board. And towards the end of the game, hopefully you've developed enough military over here on this military track. You've developed enough science production so that you can start buying and playing more expensive cards. And hopefully you've also gotten a lot of culture points so that by the end, you're the ones with the highest amount of culture. The highest amount of culture at the end of round 3 will win the game.
All right, Dan, what was your big takeaway with this game?
Cade, I'm selling this game. I'm getting it out of my collection altogether, but not because it's a bad game.
Well, then why? Why would you do such a thing, Daniel?
These components on this game and playing it in person might be one of the worst experiences of my life. And I think a main reason why I can't get anyone to play besides you, thankfully, because we're doing this video. No one wants to play this game because they see me start unboxing it and setting out all of these components and all of these references and these rule books, and the rule books are thick and all this stuff. And by the time it's set out, it's just a monstrosity to have to deal with the fiddly nature of this game and all the components and putting them where they need to be and bumping a piece of paper so everything goes sliding around. There's so many cards. There's just too much for this game. You know what would be great?
What's that?
If there was an app.
Oh, well, you're in luck, Daniel.
Really?
There is a Through the Ages app, and not only that, you can play it on BGA. And that was a wonderful experience for us. Because as you mentioned, I'm contractually obligated to play all board games with you at all times. And I was not having fun with the number of pieces, parts that you have to take care of as you're playing this game.
Yes, it's overwhelming. The
board does not have those little indented cardboard board setups where you can keep your pieces secured on the map. You accidentally brush it, the cat jumps up onto the table, the next thing you know, your pieces are everywhere.
Even if it did, it's still too much. It's too much to play this game. So I'm selling it, but you want to talk about how good of a game it is?
It absolutely is. Let's start off talking about its theme. What did you think?
So this is a tableau builder, kind of, hopefully I said that in the overview, but we've been playing a lot of them recently, and this is, like you had talked about prior to the show, the most thematic tableau builder we've played yet. Every single piece, every single card, every single action that you take is all in the Civilization-like computer game, but in board game form. The
Yes.
only thing it's lacking is exploration and territory movement around the map and things like that. Everything else, if you played Sid Meier's Civ game, is in here in some form or fashion.
Yes, it kind of feels like you're playing the cultural victory condition of a Civilization game
Yeah.
for this board game, which is fun, and honestly my favorite way to win at Civilization, the video game.
Yeah.
But and the art on the cards is as you can see here, it's based off of a lot of real characters. Well, some of the characters look like famous actors that we're familiar with, like Mads Mikkelsen looks like he's on the front of this
Mads Mikkelsen.
front of this board game here.
Yeah.
But it is a rather long game as well. I believe
Yeah.
the two of us were playing this game in person, and we were reaching the 2-hour mark on our first couple of playthroughs.
Mm-hmm.
But if we use that handy dandy app or BGA, like you were mentioning earlier, we were able to cut that time limit down to maybe 45 to an hour if we were
Yeah.
playing efficiently.
Yeah, I think an hour. And for a game this deep, being able to have the app or the website, BGA, Board Game Arena, whichever one you're using, do all of that fiddly, extra tedious work for you, cuts down the playtime completely.
We've been playing a bunch of different tableau builders recently.
Mm-hmm.
What makes this one unique for you? What's the rub?
So I think thematically it's unique in its own right, because this game brings you from ancient times all the way up to, there's 3 ages in there, all the way up to modern day, and you really feel like you're playing through that. All of the leaders, all of the technologies that you get at the beginning, all the way through the end, just makes you feel like you're playing a full game. And I think it's because you're constantly moving through the history of what this game is trying to achieve, the history of the Earth and the leaders and everything that you've discovered along the way. But mechanically, the thing that I love the most about this game is the marketplace. Being able to flip up, I can't remember, I think it might be 9, maybe 10 cards, and being able to see that the ones that you could buy cheap might be good, but then seeing a really, really good one that you want all the way to the right, but maybe it costs 3 actions to buy. It's good decision space. Unlike some of the games that you and I played, I know one of your biggest downsides to a tableau building is just drawing off the top of the deck.
No, this one you get to actually choose, see all the options that you can pick, and make your decision if you want to spend 1 action on a good one, or maybe 4 actions on something that's really great. But you're also playing that mind game against your opponent. Well, maybe I can leave it here, and he won't take it next time. He's already got a wonder he's working on, so that wonder all the way there at the end, that might make it to me down here for really cheap. I'll just wait
Yeah.
one more turn. That has that player interaction where we're going back and forth, trying to play mind games with each other to see if it's going to work out for us to stall another round. I love the marketplace draft.
I was going to say, I
component of this game.
figured that would be one of your favorite parts about it. And the other thing, too, that I don't think you like, and I don't like it either, is in some games where you've got a deck of a couple hundred cards, some of them are discarded, some of them you don't see, you only play with a portion of it. As far as the yellow-backed cards, the ones that come onto the marketplace, you see every single one in
Absolutely.
the course of a game. So you know what's going to be coming at some point, whether it's age 1, 2, or 3. You know that if you missed out on a certain type of government, one more is coming up in this age somewhere that you can plan for. So it allows you to plan from beginning to end, depending on what's coming out on the board. And I love that part of this game.
Absolutely. Something else that makes this unique in my mind is how strategically deep it is. The first couple of games that we played, we were all over the place. What we tried to say is it's like we were putting out fires. Every round, every turn, every action within your turn was oh my gosh, it's about to go catastrophic. What do I need to do here to make sure that it doesn't? And doing that every turn for every round, ensuring your civilization makes it to the modern age, was unique to the tableau builders that we've played in these past couple of months. And that I can see how that could be fun for some people, that strategic depth. For me, it was a little bit difficult, and more of a managing my resources became more of a negative, as I was just scared to make a mistake, because your mistakes of resource management can impact you for that turn, can impact you for the next turn, and it can impact you for the second and third ages even if the
you're right.
mistake is bad enough. And on your first couple of playthroughs, especially in person, even on BGA, made it a little bit easier with the undo action. You're going to have those types of errors. They're going to hit you hard for the first 5-10 games that you play. Even it has a very steep learning curve. It's not a game you're going to pick up on your first playthrough.
No, and we were talking about it before too. Like you were saying, our not just first game, but first few games were like games with training wheels on. Like we always had to go back and undo a part of our action because
Absolutely.
we realized we messed something up. We didn't quite know how to use our 4 civil actions that you get at the beginning in the most effective way possible. So there was a lot of backtracking that we had to do. But that depth ties directly into the resource management that you
Absolutely.
have. Because it's so deep is probably because there's so many different resources that you need. I could probably try and list them all off the top of my head, but there's so many. You've got your culture points, your technology, you've got your leaders, you've got your resources, you've got your
Happiness.
population, your happiness, your food, your armies, the territories that come up. There's always so much that you need to be thinking about that when you tunnel vision towards a particular strategy on your turn, like, oh, on my turn, I want to upgrade this. But then you forget about the other stuff over here. That's the part where it comes back to bite you because you kind of
Absolutely.
you get sidetracked so easily in this game. I love that about it. I love that every single time I play, I feel like I'm learning a little bit more. I think we've said before, we're peeling back the layer of the onion every time we play this game. And I know that there is a much higher level of play than what I could possibly have in this game. Like people who know this game would wipe the floor with me in an
Absolutely.
instant. And I'm still not quite there. I just don't know if I want to put in that effort. I don't know if it's worth it for what you get all the way at the end.
Yes, it is a very big time commitment to learn from the mistake you made 5 minutes into the game. It's a very long hour and a half time commitment you have to make to start over at the beginning with a new fresh game to make sure you don't make that mistake again. You mentioned this on our long form video that with all those resources you have to manage, it's best not to go wide and short, as you put it, and instead go narrow and tall and focus in on certain resources and excel at them. For like the science and technologies, for example, you found a lot of success in your game focusing on just having the ability to play any tech cards that you wanted. Or what I did in some of my games was focus on the resources to make sure that I could build anything that I wanted at any time.
Which I was a little envious of when you did that. I was like, man, he's got so many resources. I don't have these.
And I didn't have any science. I was so jealous. It made for an interesting combination. Of course, you can do the same thing with the military, which neither of us got into. But there's more than one way to play this game, which is great, and I think that adds to the replayability of the game.
Yeah.
I think it makes you want to try it again because especially playing with other people, you can see what they had success with and maybe try to mirror it in your own tableau.
Yeah. One of the games that we talking about replayability was Res Arcana recently that does a lot with so little, but I think you and I both shared the sentiment that over time you would start to lose that replayability because there's so few components, even though it crams a lot of stuff that you could do into one game. For this one, because there's so many components and it's so replayable, I think it may have a longer staying power if this is a game you wanted to dedicate your time to. I think I wouldn't really call this a lifestyle game, like this is the only one that you have to play, but if you want to keep your brain well-oiled to constantly be playing this game well, you can't wait a few months and then play it again. You need to constantly be playing, and probably playing with the person that you usually play it with. Like, for example, if I bring a new person into this game and try and play, it probably won't go over so well, but playing with you where our skills are kind of going up at the same rate makes it better. And there's a little bit of player interaction in this game too that I wanted to talk about, because there's more in this game than other ones that we've played.
True.
And I kind of like that. It is a little bit more take that and in your face for this one, with the armies and you being able to steal or destroy someone's building or take some of their things from them. But I like that, just like I like that in Res Arcana with the dragons. It gives you something else to do besides just honing down at your board the entire time. Did you like that too? Or
I
was
didn't
too
like it when
punishing?
it was happening to me.
It's too punishing. Yeah.
No, it makes sure that you're at least keeping pace in the military department. You don't want to find yourself 10, 15 points behind in military strength of your opponent because, like you said, those raid cards are coming, and to the victor goes the spoils. You're going to be deleting my buildings. You're going to be deleting my workers. You're going to be stealing my resources, cultural points, influence points, technology points. I'm going to be in a pickle. So you just have to make sure that you're keeping up every turn with your opponent and make sure you're at least within striking distance so that you could discard a military card in order to boost your military capabilities so that you're within 1 or 2 points.
Yeah.
But when it's happening to you, it's very bad. But when you're doing it to somebody else, it can be very enjoyable.
Yeah, no, it's great. These little boons that you get periodically when people start playing their political actions, and you benefit from it, and it's not even your turn because you've got a better army. You're like, oh, this is a nice little boost. Now I've got so many more things I can do on my turn. It just
really
gave me
does.
6 free resources. One thing that we didn't talk about prior to starting it, but I'm curious to what your thoughts are, the scoring in this game. So, obviously, how you win is the culture. Sometimes I don't really feel like I understand how I'm going to get the most points by the end of the game. There's a lot of different ways to do it. It counts your technology, it adds up the wonders that you've got, it adds up your military, it adds up all of these different things. And I don't know if I like it or dislike it, because sometimes when it's really clear cut, the last turn in some tableau builders is like trying to min-max. All right, how do I make the most efficient action possible? But in this one, when it's, I wouldn't say ambiguous, but when it's too much to keep track of, you at least just play till the end, and you see how you shook out.
Sometimes there are some wonders that pop up in Age 3 that have some interesting scoring components. I believe the internet might be one of those. There's a lot of different avenues to scoring points, and I think tracking those throughout the game mentally requires a lot of playthroughs. A lot of playthroughs and a lot of familiarity with the game. Tough. So who is this game for, Daniel? I think this is for a strategic mind when it comes to board games. You got to enjoy strategic depth if you're going to enjoy this game. I mean, if you're a fan of Civilization series, the PC game, I think you're going to love it, or at least have a really strong chance of loving this game.
Yeah, I think you're more inclined to like it if that's the case. And if you're a board gamer like me, where when I get something new, part of the enjoyment of playing new board games is learning new things about it. Reading the rule book and saying, oh, it's got this, that's great. You get that feeling while playing the game in this one. Every time you play it, you always feel like you're uncovering something new.
Yep.
It's really deep, so as long as you don't mind a game where after the first couple playthroughs you're not mastering it, I think you're really going to like this, because every single time you play this game, you are going to figure out something different or learn from a mistake that you did the previous time. However, I don't think you should buy this game. I think you should only play it online, or at least support the developer by doing the app instead of just BGA or something like that. I think it's a game that's worth a lot of people's time if they like complexity and if they like learning something that's really deep. But I'm not gonna play the actual board game ever again. It's just too much. I just think
It's just too many components.
Yeah, I
and
think
too much time to set up as well.
yeah, it's just really
long set up
hard to put something like that into this game, into a board game form. There's so many things in there. Board games just need to be a little bit more streamlined, and I don't think it captures that in the actual board game.
So unfortunately, we've gotten to the point of the show where we have to rate the game. Daniel, where would you give it?
I think I'd be coming in at a solid 8 on this one, and I know it maybe sounds counterintuitive to what I've been talking about because I don't like the board game, but I think the design lends itself well to an app or to the game playing it on BGA. I think everything about it's really smart. I think it encompasses what the Civilization game tries to do, which could take hours to play those games, especially if you're playing with other people, but condenses it enough to where this is a better Civilization game than Seven Wonders, for example. Seven Wonders tries to do something similar to this, but in an even more streamlined fashion, to where you feel a disconnect between what the game is and what it's trying to achieve thematically. This one feels like a Civilization game, and I think this one has the lasting replayability to maintain that 8 status over time. I don't think I can really get burned out on this game from a design perspective, because I think it's always going to give me something new every time I play it. So this one's a solid 8 for me.
What a hell of a score. I'm going to give it a 6. For me, the resource management becoming a challenge of just putting out fires and trying not to screw over my civilization in the long term felt more of a chore and more frustrating to me than it was an enjoyable experience to build my civilization. But for what this game is and for what it's trying to achieve, I could see why people love it. I mean, the strategic depth of this game is insane. There's so many things you can learn playing through this game a number of times. I feel like you could play this game 25, 50, 100 times and still feel like you're learning more about it and making yourself better and better, which that's great for people who want that experience. And for me, it was just a little bit too frustrating. I think I'd rather play something that has a more condensed time frame if I'm going to be playing that type of frustrating game, rather that be in the 30-minute mark to an hour. So that's why it bumps it a little bit down for me. But for what it's trying to achieve, I think if you've found our description of this game interesting, absolutely give it a shot.
Yeah. Do you think that this has the most complexity of any game that we've played? And the most, I guess, the longest staying power? The only other one that I can think of is Twilight Imperium, but
Yeah.
that one lends itself due to all that because of a 6-player interaction
Correct.
and the variable setup. This one's not really variable. It's just the cards that are coming out. But with how static it is throughout the whole game, you know what you're going to get. There's so much going on that I feel like, yeah, if you wanted to, you could play this game for a very long time. If you like what we did in the short form, where we're doing 20 minutes or less and maybe teaching you how to play, we talk about it in greater detail on the podcast. So hopefully we'll have some of those up for you soon.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Concerning Gaming.
Sponsored by Celsius Energy Drinks.
Mountain Dew.
And Katie's in Mid-City.
Love that place.
Great Cachandolay po' boys.
Great what?
Cachandolay? Like that pulled
Kashan?
Cachandolay?
Koshan?
What's the difference, Kate?
One's an O and one's a
Cachandolay.
I'll allow it. Actually, I won't allow it. That's why I butted in.
Yeah, you know what? The Kate Herter Show. Whatever you want.